Well, now that we got a turbo on this thing, and it seems to be running good, we got no leaks or anything like that. I haven't pushed it too hard yet because obviously it's going to be running super lean because we just introduced a bunch more air that it would not normally have. So, before I do anything, I'm going to rip this carburetor off and just rebuild it, just clean it straight away, and just have a look what's going on in there, because there's no point trying to tune something that's like out of whack because it's dirty, and you're just going to chase problems that you shouldn't have in the first place. So first thing I gotta do is pull that carburetor off, and we'll see what's going on in there. And I gotta move this fucking thing because I put it in the wrong spot, so it's all fucking sideways, so I gotta turn it and get it centered, but whatever. Well, I got that thing out of there. I didn't really bother recording anything, it was just 2 bolts and then the linkage, so yeah, super easy. Gasket still looks good, no issues there. So yeah, now we just gotta figure out what's going on with this thing. Give it a good clean, try to figure out if it has a mixture adjustment on it anywhere. Not too sure. If not, we'll have to modify it. Well, I figured I'd clean this thing up a little bit before we get too crazy and rip it apart, because then you gotta fight dropping dirt and stuff in there. It's no fun. I didn't see any mixture screws yet though. That's not very cool. I wanted some mixture screws, but maybe we can build some, or maybe they're under a freeze plug or something. Either way, 4 screws and then we'll pull this thing apart, see what's going on. Well, I just broke this thing apart, and that's how it looks. It's not too bad. I mean, I've definitely seen worse. Fairly clean. Good enough. So, just gonna give it a little bit of a clean here and then start spraying brake cleaner through some of these jets so I can figure out where everything goes, because well, I'm just trying to think of the best way I should make this adjustable. And I wanted to go through here and put my adjustable screw there and then just cut off the flow to this hole, which would allow me to adjust this and then also drill it out larger. But then I would be restricting the suction side of this, and I mean, it wouldn't be an issue normally, but it has this weird bowl vent thing in here. It's just a vent to atmosphere, or in my case, to boost. So that would, I don't know if it would affect it having the adjustment on the other side of that, rather than if I drill this one out instead, because that one's also probably my main restriction. That hole would be smaller than the jet. So if I drill this one out, I would get more fuel flow, and then if I put the adjustment there, it would be adjusting it before this thing. But I'm not sure exactly what the reason for this is. So I think that's my best bet, is to put my adjustment on the bottom here and go from there. Okay, well, I got this thing tapped, my hole that I just drilled, and then I got a screw for it, and I like curved off the top of the screw. Let me show you here. So it has like a sealing surface, and then as I screw this thing in, it's hard to do with one hand. Okay, go in. Okay, there, as I screw that in, hopefully we can see, hopefully there's enough light. You can see that screw is now coming through there, and this is the main port where the fuel comes in, and then the bolt is just a little larger than the hole going through here, but still small enough that I could tap it here, obviously. So then now I can go all the way in with this until it goes tight, and I tested it with my air compressor, and there's like nothing going past. It's completely blocked off, 100%. So now, I'll take this back out. I actually I found a spring too. So here. So with the spring, it's really hard to do with one hand. Because that's why they have a spring from factory, because if there's no tension on the screw, it'll just rattle out by itself. And also, the extra tension from the spring holds the screw in there. I mean, yeah, it holds the screw in there, and the extra tension from the spring helps it seal better too. Because there's always tension on the screw now instead. So there we go. It even looks like factory now. Spring, screw, 100% of flow, cut off with that all the way in, and then I could go out like what, half turn, quarter turn, whatever you want to do. That's your adjustment now. Well, it's just like sitting here messing with this thing and just doing this for no reason, and then this little plug fell out. I was like, oh, what's that? And it reveals to me the idle mixture screw. I would have never found it. I was thinking about drilling that plug out, but I didn't know what it was, and yeah, it just fell out. But I was also just looking online, and I found a diagram of this thing, and apparently there's a jet under here. That's what it looks like anyways in the diagram. I haven't pulled that off yet, so that's what I'm going to do, because it'd be cool if I could control the jet size from under here and then adjust it with my screw. Oh yeah, we're in business. That looks like a jet to me. Perfect. Well, there you go. It does have a jet in it. Cool. It is a number 152, I think. Doesn't mean much to me because I'm going to drill a big hole in it. I just enlarged this jet a little bit. I just used the tip cleaner from like my torches. It would only fit this one at the start, and then I just kind of rubbed it through there as evenly as I could, and then when this one just started to fit through, then I just called it good there, because obviously it's now larger because it's a larger size fits in there now. So should have a little more fuel now, and they have a small adjustment here now to be able to dial that fuel in, hopefully. And I was gonna drill and tap this one too and have another adjustment here, but I'm not sure. I don't know. For now I'm just gonna leave it and try this lower one, but I'm still not sure what the best way to do this is, because this one's before the air leak and under fuel, and this one's after the air leak and above fuel. But the jetting controls fuel before the air leak, under fuel, but I'm pretty sure normal mixture screws control it from up here. So I don't know for sure, so I'm just gonna have to mess with it. So for now, larger jet, custom adjustment screw, and yeah, good cleanup, and then we'll put it back in and we'll give her a go like that. I just tested how much fuel pressure how much air pressure I could put into the feed before it would overcome the needle here, and I was able to get all the way up to 20 psi before, well, I just stopped because I don't need to go any higher than that. So I was thinking I might need to put a rising rate regulator in this thing to compensate for boost if I get too much, but this holds 20 pounds of fuel pressure without leaking, and there's no way I'm making 20 pounds of fuel pressure, 20 pounds of boost with that. So basically I can just put a fuel pressure regulator on set at like whatever I want, 15 pounds or something like that, and then that's that. I don't need to have it rising or lowering with boost, because this carburetor should be able to hold up to enough fuel pressure to overcome the amount of boost that I'll be running. Well, it's all back together, ready to go. Looks way better now. Probably end up just upgrading it to a bigger carburetor anyways, but I figure I'll take this one as far as I can go. So slum it back in. It's looking pretty good in there. I'm gonna have to clean everything else up now. But see, this is what I mean here. How I pressurized everything. See, I kind of dug out some little openings here. And if you look on the carburetor, it's so these two bowl vents here are pressurized, and then all these other vents were already like countersunk down here, so they were getting pressurized too. And same with this one over here. Well, actually there's nothing over here. But yeah, just everything's pressurized, because if there's any leaks at all, then it's just going to shoot fuel out of there and it won't work. Alright. Well, I figured I'd grab a boost gauge on Amazon Prime, so we could throw that in there and see if it's actually doing anything. And they gave me this hose, which is not very good. It's like aquarium hose or something. Whatever, we'll use it. So I'm trying to salvage like a fitting or something here so we can use it. Because I don't want to just put it on a bar because I don't have one. So we'll figure something out. I think maybe we can use this compression fitting. It'll fit on there and tighten it down. And then we have 1/8 MPT. And then maybe we can drill a hole in the manifold somewhere if we got room. We'll have to pull this carburetor off again, so we can get a measurement of vacuum and boost, because if I just tap it into the charge pipe, or like the turbo right here, you're only going to see boost pressure, and it's not going to be very accurate because it's not what the actual engine's seeing. And when the throttle plate closes, you'll just still see a positive pressure, because you won't be seeing what the engine is sucking on through the intake manifold. Well, I got my fitting tapped in there, and I got some hose on it, and I just covered it in some wiring loom to protect it from the heat. I ran it up and around and through to here, and then just about to figure out where I want to put this boost gauge in. I was like looking at this, and it just kind of peels off. Perfect spot for a gauge. Well, we're committed now. I had to clamp a piece of wood behind here to be able to do this, because there was already a square here, and you need to have the center mark in there, otherwise you're just going to be like, whoa, it's just going to look like shit. But yeah, it turned out mint. Alright then, so the cheapo aquarium hosing they give you has too much flow through it for this boost gauge, I guess. It just jumps around all over the place, and as soon as you put a restriction on it, it's fine. So that's kind of annoying, but I'm glad I didn't put the cover back on. I just have to figure out some sort of restriction or something. Maybe just zip tie, I don't know. Well, to solve this boost gauge issue I'm having here, I'm just using some of this old hose from my 240SX. It's like off the emissions or something. And then I just put it in my vise here and heated it up with a lighter and filled it with solder, and then jammed a piece of copper through it and pulled it out real quick. And now I have a super restricted hose. So I'm gonna go put that in there right now, and hopefully that solves our issue, because this is pretty annoying. Alright, well, hopefully this works. Well, it seems to work good now. All it took was just a little bit of restriction on the boost gauge line there. So as you can see, it wasn't making any boost, but I'm not surprised because it didn't have any load on the engine. And most engines, well, all engines, they won't really make any boost if you're just free rev it like that. So now, I think I'm gonna hook up some cables here, try to burn a rod or two and see if this thing will actually make some boost. Well, I was literally just welding by feel and looking at the boost gauge and holding my camera, and as you can see, it was making boost, so I'll just pull the plugs out real quick, have a little look at them, and to me, I don't know how good we're going to be able to get this to focus, but to me it looks like it's running a little lean. You could tell by it's kind of like white and chalky. I mean, these spark plugs are just freaking years old and they're not even good really to be basing anything off, but just at first glance I would think it's a little lean. And that was about the first time we hit boost on it, so I think I might have to enlarge that jet a little more, but I want to burn a couple rods on this thing and see, get a good accurate test. I think I need to go buy some new spark plugs, so should never be tuning on old garbage spark plugs. Well, I'm just pulled this carb off again because I want to enlarge the jet a little more, because it still just runs way too good, so it's probably running pretty lean, and until I hit the point where I can really notice it running rich, then I'm not going to feel too safe with this thing, because once I find the lowest point at where it's super rich, then from there I know where it's lean, I know where it's rich, and then I can find a point in the middle where it has lots of power and it runs good. Well, right now all I'm doing is just enlarging this jet, but I do have an idea that if this jet starts to get too large and it runs like nice on boost, but then once it idles down, or once you're just burning a small rod or not much load and you don't have any boost, if it starts to run super rich and bad, well, I think I'm just going to modify this carburetor by using this as a secondary. I think because this works by cutting off fuel flow to the main jet here. So if I just drill in another jet, see, it's like just in here, you can see it would normally be in there. So if I just drill another hole right here that bypasses this jet, then that will be my off boost jet. So I'll drill it really small, and then I'll just drill it like whatever this was stock. And then, so this would be off normally, and it would be running, fuel would be going through that hole, and then I'll have this kick on from like a switch that's powered by like 2 psi. So once it hits 2 psi boost, it opens this and then allows fuel to go through this jet. When then I can adjust this one for my on boost fueling, and this hole in here I can enlarge and make smaller for my like low load off boost, like if I'm just burning like a 1/8 or a 332, or just like if it's just high idling or something with no load. But I still have to figure out how to do that. I could just drill a hole in there, but if I start getting too big, it's kind of hard to close it up. So it'd be nice if I could tap like a jet in there, but like if I could tap another one of these in there, but it'd be pretty tight. I probably will just start out with a really small hole, like maybe smaller than stock, and then just go up from there and try to get it running perfect on that with this turned off. And then once it runs good off boost, like just high idle and just like burning a 1/8 or something like that, then I'll start to open this up again on boost at high load, and we'll tune the boost jets. Well, it's back in there now, ready to go, so it should start right up. I got the fuel pump wired to run with ignition now instead of waiting for fuel pressure, so it always fires up quicker now. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm gonna burn a couple of rods now, and hopefully it runs super rich, and then we actually can go from there. Because it's don't feel very safe if it's super lean all day. So I just shut it off straight away after putting a load on it, because then when you pull the plugs out, it shows you how it was running when you were just putting a load on it. Whereas if you just let it idle down and then pull the plugs, it's just going to show you how it was running at idle. So that's why I shut it straight down like that. Now I can check the plugs, but I'm confident it was running a bit more rich there, because at low idle I could tell it was kind of sputtering a little more, and the low idle was a little lower than it normally would be. So it's definitely starting to richen up, but as you can see, it still makes like 2 pounds of boost, and it still runs pretty good on boost. It's not noticeably starting to like run out of fuel, or I mean, yeah, it's not noticeably too rich on boost yet. So I'm gonna do a couple more tries and look at these plugs, and we'll go from there. Considerably larger now. We're starting to get into the body now. Awesome. I got that jet pretty large now, and it seems to run pretty good. I mean, down at low idle, it's starting to sputter a bit, which that's fine. That's not an issue at all. We can deal with that. But it's the main thing is it's running a lot cooler now. From when I first put the turbo on, like this thing, you start it for like a minute and it was just cooking. But now I was just burning rods after rods, and yeah, it just seems to be handling it fine. But the issue is now, I looked up the specs of the fuel pump on this thing, and it only makes 0.5 to 2 psi max, and we're making 2 psi boost, as you can see. So if we have 2 psi boost going into the carburetor and 2 psi fuel pressure trying to push into the carburetor, well then there's the fuel pressure can't overcome the boost, so there's no fuel going into the carburetor. So even if I do get the jetting just perfectly and I'm burning rod after rod after rod, I might drain the fuel ball and then it'll lean out, and then I'll be trying to richen up the jets more to compensate for that, but it's not the jet, it's because the bowl is leaning out. So it's like, at this point I can't really go much further until I get a fuel pump and a regulator. So I have them on order and they'll be here soon, but the mail takes forever sometimes, so I'll probably just leave this video here, and then I'll pick it back up again when my regulator and fuel pump gets here. So yeah, hopefully you guys like this project, because I sure do. I had a lot of fun building this thing, and it's sweet. It sounds freaking awesome. I've never taken that turbo off.